Does leadership have a gender? We're going to talk more about that. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I'm your host, Catryn Becker. And in this podcast, we interview successful people from all different types of industries and professions because we want to learn what they have learned that has made them so successful. We want to learn what they've learned from their failures so that we can either avoid those failures completely or we can fail faster. So today I've got a great guest for you. His name is Josef Stetter, and he is a corporate culturist and resume whisperer. Definitely want to learn more about that. We're going to talk all about corporate culture and resumes and hiring and firing and all of the good, bad, and ugly that comes with it. So Josef, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to share a little bit of wisdom.
Absolutely, because it's taken you a while to figure out what it is that you love to do. You've had a bunch of different careers that led up to this point, which is probably really great for what you do now.
Yeah, I kind of started with trying to please my parents and trying to find a good job, but never really enjoyed it. So I switched careers 9 times and I've had over 18 different jobs. And that's kind of given me a very holistic approach to understanding how business in general works. Because it took me a very long time to understand what I'm passionate about. And my passion is to leave a legacy that I've made an impact for the better in the world of kind of being employed or being an entrepreneur or
Mm, yeah.
both kind of thing.
I love that. Well, and I started this episode about does leadership have a gender? And I definitely want to get into kind of what you've seen, but a lot of the work that you do with the Celebrate group is you're either working with companies on their leadership, on their culture, on how that works together, or you're helping job seekers to be more attractive to employers. Can you go into a little bit more about what it is that you do? And then we'll get into some of the juicy good, bad, and ugly.
So in the corporate culture, as a corporate culturist, I serve companies in 5 different ways. So the first is old school headhunting. I don't post on any job boards. I don't post on LinkedIn. I literally go, what do you need? What do you want? Why aren't you finding it right now?
Hmm.
And then let me go bring them to you from the industry, from your competitors, from wherever. The second part, and one of the reasons that my recruiting stands out, is I offer a full year guarantee on every candidate when the industry standard is 3 months because I put every candidate through a variety of assessments so that I can measure their leadership style, their communication style, how they make decisions. And so I paint a very complete picture to my clients. And not only do I do that in the recruiting, but I also offer it to clients to better understand their existing staff and where there are strengths and weaknesses that can be mentored, groomed, and supported for kind of progressing the company. And so, in that, this is where a lot of companies preach corporate culture because it's a very big buzzword right now, like well being, but they don't actually practice it. So, I offer either here's kind of the manual I've written, which is 250 pages plus, and you can pick and choose what you want there. But I take it another level to go, let's just say you want to create a paint night as an experience for your employees. Rather than going to the typical franchise where everybody paints the same tree,
Hmm.
what if I brought internationally renowned artists to your office to do a one of a kind event? So depending on the company budget, I can bring in, wellness experts. I can bring in speakers like Les Brown if you have kind of the budget for it. But if you don't have a Les Brown budget, here's experts that can come and do a customized event or training or anything like that. And so I also help companies implement a social committee to actually engage employees on a higher level and better understand them. And similarly with social responsibilities, I offer them kind of insights through data that says, here's what your employees care about. So rather than just going, we cut a check to feed the homeless, we got our tax rate, we got our PR, you can still get the same tax rate, you still get more PR, but now you're doing things that engages your employees. And then I also offer outplacement services if a company needs to downsize for whatever reason. So because of all the analysis that I give and all the data, I can actually give real kind of accurate information on if this person is performing really well and you want them to become a leader, here's what's missing, here's what needs to be trained or taught so that when you promote them, they're ready for that promotion. They're ready for that next level.
So I know I asked you about the other part, and we will get back to there, but I want to dig deeper on the leadership piece, because the reason I asked the question of does leadership have a gender, I actually did a post on LinkedIn recently that was responding to the phrase nice girl or the good girl, good
Yep.
girl syndrome that a lot of women have about being people pleasers and putting everyone else first. And the gist of the post was, to be a true leader, you need to take care of yourself and extend the same kindness and respect and compassion that you have for your team to yourself as well. And someone had commented in there about men and women leading differently. And so with your experience with leadership, I just love the timing of this. I'd love to know kind of your thoughts and what you've seen in this area.
Again, you still have, let's say, the banking and the insurance industry that are kind of the old boys club mentality. Okay, but if you're looking at companies like Yahoo and Google and a few other leaders, there's more women now in leadership, and there's more kind of push for women in leadership, because men have to be taught that when you take care of your people actually perform better. So, as an example, when I speak to a CEO, I say to him, if you have a personal assistant or an executive assistant, yes, you can give them, and generally speaking, it is still predominantly women, you can give a $2,000 bonus for doing a great job. But instead of giving that $2,000 bonus, send them for a full day at the spa and pay their salary for that day while they're pampering themselves in the spa, which will actually end up costing you, let's say, $500-$600, not 2,000. And I guarantee you the productivity will be twice as high, because for a lot of women, it's a luxury. It's not something that necessarily, depending on the salary, and again, depending on where in the United States or so forth, the salary ranges can be quite different. So some of them are earning, let's say, $20 an hour. So spending $500 to go pamper yourself at the spa
Big
is a
deal.
lot of money.
Yeah.
But when they kind of go, wow, this person cares about me and they let me relax, they let me this, they'll come back more energized and more rejuvenated than ever before. So let's say for me, I was working for a company that owns 70 private colleges across Canada. They asked me to build a call center from scratch with restrictions that my team will call leads that are more than 4 months old and more than 50 miles from the nearest campus, kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
And the idea was that my team will basically generate $300,000 in the year. Within 6 months, my team did $2.25 million. Now,
Whoa.
I am a firm believer in taking care of people. So we were doing so well that the VP challenged me to get my team to produce $150,000 for the week. And I kind of Monday morning meeting, celebrated everybody for what they did the last week. And then I said, here's our challenge for this week. If you guys achieve this as a team, I will make it worth your while on Friday. By Wednesday at 2:20, we were at $220,000. So on Wednesday at 2:30, I told the entire team, do not bring lunch to work on Friday. I'm treating you VIP. By Friday at noon, we had reached about $310,000. I gave the entire team VIP tickets to the movie theater and a $30 gift certificate to each one to go buy whatever food they want in the theater. And I said to them, since we are an outbound call center, we do have very few calls that come in as callbacks. So I will stay back, and whatever calls I answered, I will credit you the sales. So I actually closed 10 deals for my staff while they were enjoying. My VP found out and was like, did you just send your entire team to the movies during work hours? I'm like, yep. He's like, what's wrong with you? And I said to him, you asked for 150,000. We gave you double that, 310,000 to be exact. He's like, yeah, but there's another 5 hours of work. They could have produced more sales. I looked at him and said, if they don't produce more next week, you can go ahead and fire me. When they came in on Monday, they were so excited that they got to see a VIP movie, with the good, comfortable seats, They got the food that they shared. And I was like, if you don't spend it, it's yours. Keep it, do with it, whatever you want, kind of thing. Right. And that they kind of got to relax before the weekend, that the following week we did $430,000. It was
Wow.
all about understanding when you take care of people, the rest will follow. And this is where I give women credit because they have the innate ability to have the motherly instincts. And so they tend to be more concerned about the well-being of everybody around them, without having to put an effort on it because it comes more natural.
Mm.
And so that's where I give credit to women leaders because it's not there. And because there's a level of checking in, the decisions are more relevant because it's not, I made the decision, now go do it kind of thing. There's a level of engagement that I would say is a little bit higher.
So how did you learn how to do this? Where did that come from you?
I've always enjoyed being of service to people. And for example, I'm an avid salsa dancer. And
Really?
yes, and I used to perform and compete. And I would go to clubs
Really?
regularly and I would watch a lot of people go, oh, I'm coming here every Saturday. You should hook me up, let me in for free. And I want to watch them and like, okay, yeah. I actually did something else. I went to the security guards. I'm like, do you need a coffee? Let me go buy, especially when it was cold outside. Let me buy you some donuts. Let me buy you some chocolate. And I took 10 minutes to speak to them, never asking for a discount, never asking to be free, but being of service first.
Mm.
And so when, let's say, there was a birthday party, as soon as they saw me, they're like, how many do you have? And 20 people, here's your passes, go ahead, skip the line. There, because I didn't come every week asking for it. I served first. And, you know, part of switching careers so many times and seeing things on, different industries and different there, I kind of realized that if you take care of the small things, the big things will figure themselves out.
Mm.
And you can get a lot more productivity because it's about having conversations. It's about paying attention. Cup of coffee costs me, even if it's Starbucks, $5, let's say, $10. But that $10 is producing me $10,000 or $100,000. And so it's like you take care of it. And
Well, and even if it never did come back, you probably wouldn't be upset anyway because you were doing it
out of the kindness of my heart, but I'm saying that
right to be a good
like
person.
my mindset has always been like, I've always been a giver. I've always been there. And yeah, I've had a lot of people and a lot of employers in the past that have taken a lot of advantage of that. Where when I was younger and I was trying to impress, I was like, okay, fine, I'll work the whole weekend overtime and I'll do this. And then, I think where one of the biggest breaking points for me was I was a stock trader in a bank. I used to answer the phone. It's a great or fantastic day at bank name. My name's Joseph. How can I help you? One of my coworkers complained that me saying great or fantastic could be interpreted as the bank is making too much money.
Mm.
So senior management had 3 2-hour long meetings to discuss whether or not I was allowed to say great and fantastic, and decided it was easier to ban me from saying great or fantastic than to retrain 120 traders on the floor. Now, after this happened, one of the senior VPs came to me and said, Joseph, you're always so positive, you're always so energetic, but morale here is really low. I'd like you to start a social committee to boost morale. I said, okay, great. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to organize a potluck. And he looked at me and goes, the majority of people here are battlers. They'll probably just give you $5, $10 and say, we'll eat what everybody else is bringing. I said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And I created an Excel spreadsheet. This many people bring, drinks, this many people cookies, this many main courses and so forth. I logged off the phone for 2 hours. Starting with the executive VPs, I said, I don't care if you make it, your partner makes it, your mom makes it, or you buy it, but you're signing up for something, right? The day of the potluck, I logged off the phone to organize the food so that the meat wasn't beside the chocolate and candy kind of thing. Now, during the quarter, I won or came in the top 3 for 7 out of 10 contests, including answering 155 trading calls in an 8-hour shift, right? The bank refused to give me my bonus because I was logged off the phone for 4 hours to organize the very thing
They
that
asked.
the executive VP asked me to. And not only that, but for the next 3 months, everybody talked about, we had the equivalent of like a 25-person boardroom table, two of them full of food. And there was so much variety and so much there that people talked about how great it was to just go grab a cookie and come back to their desk and do the trading calls and so forth. And even though I created events, I really leveled up the energy. There were kind of this leadership was like, if we don't give our employees the bonuses, we get to pocket them. And those are things that where I can say my experience of working with female leaders, they understand, and I'll separate there's a huge separation between leaders and managers.
Yes.
Because managers are terrified to lose their job, so they don't want you to shine. Leaders want to lose their job, because if I've done such a good job that you get promoted, Catryn, chances are that company is going to promote me even higher. And if they don't, another company will.
Right. That's your cue to leave. I love to say that, you manage things and you lead people.
Oh, right. And so there's a level of, lead by example. And so women, because they understand that life happens sometimes, and sometimes people just need a mental break. One of my favorite TV shows is Undercover Boss. At the end of every episode, every executive goes, "Oh my God, I should speak to the people that work here. I might actually get some insights." And my reaction was like, "Really? You think?" Right? Because it's not just like, yes, it is a profits and losses game in a sense of business, but people need the water cooler conversation. People need to talk about TV and music and their kids because it refreshes their brain. It gives them energy. It gives them a little bit of vitality, right?
Yeah, it's other ways to connect.
Correct. And so to me, as I started kind of doing this, I kind of went, okay, no one's doing this in business. I did self-development and I was like, okay, why is nobody applying this? Like Tony Robbins, I did the Walk of Fire with Tony Robbins. And I'm like, why is nobody implementing some of these brilliant self-development, self-realization? And what you're seeing is that these old boys club are having heart attacks. They're dying of cancer. So their wellness is, you can have all the money in the world, but if you get cancer, all of that doesn't matter. Like, yes, the money can buy you access to better treatment faster. But if your health goes, everything goes. And so there's a level where, I've been married for 5 years. When I met my wife, she took me with her to get manicures and pedicures. As a guy, like, I don't necessarily care for the pedicures because I keep very short nails, but the pedicures to scrape the old skin, I go just because it feels so good. And as a guy, I was like, there's a stigma like, oh, you're getting manicure, you're so metrosexual. No, I'm taking care of my body. I'm rejuvenating and refreshing it. And so all of a sudden it's like, this is a whole new world that, we don't talk about, but women, I love my wife and I don't like, she's like, okay, I'm going for a mani pedi. I'm like, go do your hair, do your
take care
whatever,
of the things.
go take care of whatever makes you feel good. Because at the end of the day, if you're happier, the family's happier, everybody's is happy. So,
Well, I've got a question because I know that when we were talking earlier, how you really helped certain people get great raises and really get the value of what they're worth. I'm curious. I mean, we've been talking about the gender pay inequality for years. Are you seeing improvements in that, or is there still resistance to have that sort of pay equality?
So here's what I'm going to say to you. I think it's not necessarily a gender issue as much as it's here's the results I produce issue. Because typically speaking, most job applicants talk about what they know and what they've experienced. So I'm going to use two examples for you. So if, let's say, you're applying to be a receptionist somewhere and you come in and say, I know how to answer the phone. I hope a potential employer looks at you in shock and goes, Really? A receptionist that knows how to answer the phone. We did not know that because unless you live in a cave, an igloo, or practice the faith of Mennonites that doesn't believe in technology at all, my 4-year-old daughter can press the green button and go, hello, right? And this is what we do. Now, if you have experience and you say, in my last job, I answered 60 calls a day with 12 different lines, I can measure 60 calls a day with 12 different lines. I cannot measure, I know how to answer the phone. Now, if I use an example from my career, I can say to you, I'm an excellent salesperson. I know how to do B2B, B2C, account management, relationship building, lead generation. I've done retail, door-to-door sales, car sales, private education, recruiting. All those words are very important for the algorithms of Indeed and LinkedIn because those are technical words associated with sales. But I haven't actually given you proof that I know how to sell. Now, if I say to you, I work for a private college that before I came in generated $530,000 in sales for the year. In 1 month, I generated $860,000 in sales for them. Which one would convince you that I know how to sell?
Right.
All of the words or the examples? Part of the problem is because most women are more nurturers or more empath, they don't quantify the level of value that they bring. They don't quantify enough, and men too, but there's a bigger gap in the women because they go, yes, I have this experience, I have this designation. Don't care. I care how good you are. Can you make me money? Can you save me money? Or can you increase my efficiency? When women demonstrate that confidence, the pay gap lessens because you're now speaking to an executive, let's say, in numbers that executives understand. Because if I'm going to pay you a salary of $150,000, my expectation is that you're going to produce $1.5 million. Grant Cardone talks about the 10x factor, for example. Men or women, it doesn't matter. In fact, there's, again, some industries like banking and insurance, still the old boys club, but there is STEM programs now that the main focus is to get more women into the field. There is, women in science, that there are such programs from high school all the way through college and universities that are focused on women to come into the industry, to kind of start changing the industry. So yes, you still will get the, okay, well, you're a woman and you're this and that. But if you speak results, if you speak, here's how great I am at what I do,
Well,
the
that's
listening
an
changes.
interesting concept. So, and I kind of want to dive into this a little bit.
Please.
For what I'm hearing is how women position themselves isn't always received by men.
Correct.
But so women have to adjust how we're doing it. Should it also be that men are adjusting to be able to ask further questions to get to that level of
Okay,
detail?
so let me throw this at you. Okay. If we were both single and I approach it like this, hi, 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 can I get your number? What are my chances?
Very low.
Very low. You might be physically attracted to me, so you'll give me a little bit of a chance. But most psychological study on women show that the two things that they look for in a man are confidence and sense of humor, for example. Now, if you go to a job and go, please, please, please give me a job, I'm really hardworking, one of two things will happen. They'll either hire you and pay you nothing because they know you're desperate, or they won't hire you because you don't have confidence in yourself. So it's not about women changing who they are, right? It's about presenting information that matters to the listener, whether it's a female or male executive. I'm hiring you not because I have an empty chair here. I'm hiring you because I need you to produce certain results. How you choose?
Did you happen to watch the Barbie movie over
Yes,
the
I did.
summer? And the monologue that Gloria's character does towards the end about how difficult it is to be a woman and balance all of these things.
Look, sorry, this might not be a very popular opinion, but I watched that movie with my wife, and we both looked and went, "What is this? What is all this hype about?" Like, don't get me wrong, I'm fully supportive and I surround myself with great women. I have female mentors in my life and so forth. But a lot of people are choosing to go, here's the path of least resistance. Like when they're searching for a job, they're only using Indeed, which is one of the worst places to look for a job because one job posting gets between 350 and 5,000 applicants. Most companies look at the first 100. And if you don't know the tricks, you're not noticed. But there's also, and again, I've surrounded myself with some amazing women, and I'm constantly learning because they think differently. And I absorb everything that, how they process certain information and why. And here's how you need to be aware of conversations because they're more in tune, much better at it. Right. But similar to the example I gave you about asking you out, if I were, it is safe. And again, I'm not a pickup artist, never was. But if a woman is in a bar or club, she can tell the energy of the guys whether they have confidence or not. And so as the guy's potentially approaching, there's already a sense of energy happening on kind of how the conversation will flow. Right. So understand that, yes, there's still a lot of, oh, well, you're going to be off on maternity leave and you have this. And it's kind of what will happen to your department, what will happen to the business if you're gone because motherly instincts kick in. I'm not dismissing that, but we also live in a changing world where we've become completely dependent on technology and we've forgotten the human factor, right? I've yet to meet anybody that got hired because they wrote a great resume, never got interviewed, never talked to anybody in the company. I've never met anybody that swiped right on a dating profile, extended a couple chat and said, let's get married, like text chats and said, let's get married, right? Because you might be able to text well, you might be able to have a great phone conversation, but the energy face to face is very different. So there's a level where, yes, there's a lot of changes happening with women empowerment. And we're also taking it to the level where I support anybody being whoever they want to be. But we're also getting to the extreme that it's getting ridiculous. Like you have people that are perfectly healthy that identify as trans disabled or whatever the term for it. And so they purposely harm themselves so that they can be disabled. You know, if you look at what's happened in sport with Caitlin, I forget her last name, that, you know, as a transgender man that now identifies as a woman, you know, from a perspective of biology, there are certain things that, like, for example, women's center of gravity is their hips, men's center of gravity is their shoulder. So, you know, if you do a challenge where you're on your knees and you try to reach forward and touch your nose with forward and come back, women can do it without touching their hands to the ground. Men, most of the time, will fall because their center of gravity is their shoulder. They're built differently. There's different strengths. So if you have all of a sudden a man that goes, I can't make it as a man, as a professional athlete, let me grow my hair out or wear a wig, put on some makeup and say, I'm a woman and let me win every medal that exists in there. And I think it was Senator Ted Cruz that I was watching one of his thing and he asked somebody, you know, what is the women's world record for 100 meters? The woman didn't know, and he told her, and he goes, do you know how many times that was beaten by a man this year alone? And she was like, no. And he goes, 2,500 times. Right. So if now men kind of want the glory, want this, and can go, okay, again, if you're trans, more power to you, be who you are. I support you, I respect you, I believe in you. But there should be some, you might be able to compete in this sport because it's kind of neutral, it's a team sport, it's this, versus the individual where physiologically, biologically, there are significant difference. In the corporate world, there is more of an understanding that women can give you more creative ideas because women don't necessarily, like, yes, they have logic, but because they know how to use their left side of the brain, the creative side, they're more attentive to feedback and insight. There's a recognition that sometimes that leads to better decisions. Sometimes that leads to a better culture and environment as a whole, right? So I think it depends on the industry and it depends on the type of role, right? But at the end of the day, I've had the honor and the pleasure of now helping 12,000 professionals land their dream job in as little as 2 days
That's
as
an
a resume.
incredible number.
Thank you. And so here's the thing. Like my wife is an example. She worked as a behavior therapist for a private center working with autistic kids that were nonverbal. They scheduled her from 9 to 6, and the owner was female. And if one of the child wasn't available, let's say from 12 to 4, not only was she not paid for those 4 hours, but she wasn't even allowed to leave and, let's say, get some stuff done because her client was there. She needed 97% under her evaluation. She got 96, and she'd been working there for 3 years. And the owner looked at her and said, "I'm firing you."
Hmm.
Right? And then she cried for a couple days because it was like, and I'm like, reminder, you're dating one of the top career coaches in North America. I didn't do a very good job of marketing myself, but I've helped a lot of people, kind of thing. And she was like, okay, we wrote her resume. Sunday, she sent out 7 resumes. Monday, 3 companies called her and set up 3 interviews for her on Tuesday. Tuesday, she had 3 job offers, all for more money, closer to home with better conditions than what she had for the past 3 years. And the
I
fear
mean,
of
that
change,
says it all right there, doesn't it?
right, but the fear of change is what held her back. And most people get complacent in, I know the routine here. I know the people here. And even in dating, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it so much comes back to mindset. And I love what you were saying about just being authentic to who we are. And there's so much fear that who we are isn't good enough.
right. And this is where if you asked me 10 years ago, is there a massive discrepancy? I would tell you 100%. There's a massive discrepancy between men and women. But women that can own, this is how good I am at what I do. Here's why, let's say, my ideas are not your typical cookie cutter ideas. Here's my process for it. Here's the results that I produced. There's a different listening,
Hmm.
right? So, for example, when I teach job seekers, I teach them also what questions to ask at the end of the interview. Because at the end of the interview, if let's say you ask a potential employer, what would you say is the biggest obstacle for success in this position? So, whatever the employer says, blah, 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 even if you've already talked about it through an interview, when you reinforce, here's the example I gave you, here's the results I produced, this won't be an obstacle for me. There's a different listening for you.
Sure.
You know,
Well, and the fact that most of the time when people ask, do you have any questions for me? When I was in the corporate space and I did interviewing, most of the time they didn't have any.
which is also a mistake,
Yeah. I mean,
right?
I thought like, man, you're just gonna spend the majority of your life here and you don't have any questions. I want curious people.
But again, those are things like, if I were hired tomorrow, what is the first thing I could do to make an immediate impact? What do you think happens to a potential employer when male or female, you talk about making an immediate impact? Right. And I think this is where, since I've helped 12,000 people, it's not men, it's not women, I've helped people that had a criminal record, I've helped new immigrants, I've helped new graduates, I've helped there's a shift in, here's the value that you bring to the table versus I know how to do this. There's a shift between um, give me a chance versus here's what you lose if you don't hire me, for example. And I think that's the conversation that more women need to have, even as entrepreneurs, even if they're trying to break into the typically male dominated industry or role model. You'll see that it's that, okay, if you're speaking to me in numbers and I'm a C-level executive, I will respond to numbers. Yes, there's a need for the background story, but Even if you watch Shark Tank, they got
Yeah, you got to give the numbers.
that they got a minute or two to kind of go, here's my little story, condensed, and then here's proof of concept. If you don't know the numbers, doesn't matter what your story is.
Well,
In some cases, I'm not saying that they're completely heartless, but I'm just
sure.
saying that that's a differentiator that I think most people don't have.
Well, obviously, you've given such great examples of what it's like to work with you. And I mean, 1,200 people, that's incredible.
12,000.
12,000. Gosh, it's even bigger. Man, 12,000 just seems way too much for that to be possible. So thank you for that correction. 12,000. So obviously, people are going to want to reach out and work with you. So please let the people know how they can do that.
So the celebrategroup.com is my website, or josefstetter.com. They're there. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on most social media platforms. I'm most active on LinkedIn and Facebook. But through my website, there's a direct kind of get a hold of me. Here's my phone number. Here's kind of how you find me. And I'm here to serve.
Well, I love that. Thank you so much for being a guest on here and for sharing your stories and your experience. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
And to the listeners, thank you for being here. I know you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe. Send this to a friend who might need this, someone who's job hunting or maybe needs a little bit more job satisfaction in their employment. Until next time, everyone, take care.